What are some subtle relationship red flags that are often overlooked? When you start to hate the person you are when you're with them. Using ultimatums to get their way instead of compromising. If you don't stop making ultimatums, I am going to leave you. If all of your friends or your trusted family members hate your boyfriend, girlfriend, often they can see things about you so that you can't. If they consistently make you their last priority or simply an afterthought. In the beginning stages, when they complain about their ex, it isn't easy to build a new relationship on the ashes of an old one. Unless you are a phoenix. When they never apologize or takes responsibility for bad behavior. When somehow all their bad behavior is because of something you did. Well, I wouldn't have forgotten to do X if you had reminded me. I wouldn't have had to kick the dog if you had trained it better. I wouldn't have messed up X if you had been more clear in your instructions. Yes. Yes. Nothing is ever your fault. I get it. I'm terrible for making you do these things. Get lost. Edit. Thanks for the gold. I am both amused and sorry that this situation is so relatable. If the guy says you don't really want to date me, I'm an asshole. Believe him. Translation. I like you enough to FCK you. But that's about it. When they don't want you to be friends with their friends. Chris Rock brought us up already. If you've been dating a man for 4 months and haven't met any of his friends, you are not his girlfriend. When he puts you down in front of others. Maybe this is too broad, but a therapist one time told me that the moment you start keeping a running tally in your head of all the ways your so has wronged you, the relationship is doomed. Both of you must be comfortable doing separate things in the same room. If one of you isn't, it's a red flag. Hold on to literally everything and brings up stuff you said months ago. Even if you forgot saying it. That score-keeping stuff gets old really fast. Especially when you don't remember if it's even accurate or not. If you text your so and never really respond in a reasonable time. But when they are with you, they are constantly on their phone. That's a serious red flag. Putting you on a pedestal. It may seem nice at first, but it means they're not seeing your full personhood. Rather, they are seeing a fictional and idealized version of you. It is unintentionally dehumanizing. Plus, the only place to go is down. The first time I meet someone, if all they talk about is how horrible other people are, or they are going on a huge pity party about themselves, or they're generally complaining about life and how hard it is, those are red flags I look for. If that is the first time I meet them, what is it going to be like the rest of the time? I'm the rescuing sort. So I used to see these people as great opportunities to help. And what I've found is that if they can't help themselves, and they haven't felt that the numerous other people who have helped them already were beneficial at all, then I am certainly not going to be able to do anything either. Learning from mistakes here. The last one was harsh. And I'm not going through that kind of emotional damage again. I've been able to see the warning signs a few times since then, which has been really helpful. When things that have always pissed her off mysteriously stop pissing her off anymore. One of the red flags I totally ignored in a past relationship is that I didn't really like any of her friends. If you don't like the people your so chooses to hang out with, you probably should reevaluate things. Anytime the relationship needs to be kept secret, there is a problem in there somewhere. I've fallen for it twice and learned my lesson. If he seems displeased anytime you go hang out with your friends rather than spending time with him/her, it could be a sign of bigger issues down the road. I've seen many relationships deteriorate quickly, to the point where the significant other eventually unfriended nearly all their boyfriend's contacts on Facebook, saying you've got me, so you have no reason to need anybody else. Obviously it doesn't get this far on the first date, but it's a very slippery slope. So watch out for warning signs. One time my ex had asked me to come to a party they were throwing at his fraternity over the summer. I'd say it's a bad sign if the person treats a difference in your relationship preferences as a wrong right situation, rather than as a difference in preference. For example, if you want to see your significant other every single day but they don't feel the same, that doesn't make you clingy. It means you need to either compromise or consider that you just might not be compatible. It makes me really sad to see people get convinced they are wrong when they just have a preference. And I think those who try to convince others that their preference is the right way to behave in a relationship are manipulative jerks. I feel like this is the WebMD of dating advice, where I came to check out what this scratch was on my finger and now I think I have AIDS and cancer. Did she get mad at you for not doing the dishes? She's nitpicky. Did she stop getting mad at you for not doing the dishes? She's leaving you. WebMD had me fill out 15 pages of questionnaires about my medical history and determined the most likely cause of my symptoms was an ectopic pregnancy. I hear it's especially dangerous and rare for men. Edit. Thanks for the gold. What's gold? When the time you spend with your so starts being talked about as if there is a minimum requirement per week. Once you feel like you need a time card, it's time to punch out. When they tell half-truths, they tell you the part of the story that answers your question but leave out the part that would make you upset. Adults will tell the whole story if the truth will make you that upset. It's not a good relationship. If your so still throws temper tantrums like a child over insignificant things, run. Emotional stability isn't hard to possess if you're a rational, clear-headed adult. We all have issues and get frustrated. But if someone is unable to choose their battles, it's definitely a red flag. When the relationship starts while the so is already in a relationship. Seriously. It will happen to you next. When you start having more bad days than good. That's a wrap. I do not understand why people stay in miserable relationships for a long period of time. There comes a point when you have to ask yourself, do I really want to deal with this BS for another day, week, month, or year? If you have tried to work out your issues and there is no positive result in sight, it's time to move on. When they are vaguely rude to other people, such as someone in public service. When they go to rallies featuring large posters of Vladimir Lenin and the hammer and sickle. Those tend to be pretty big red flags. If they want to make rules about things you do that they have no business making rules about, i.e. where you go, who you talk to or hang out with, or want to control things like how you dress and how you wear your hair. If they can't stop talking about their ex, they're probably not over it yet, and nothing is crappier than a relationship where the ex's ghost is always chilling in the corner. If they constantly have to have their hands on you in public, it's weird and territorial. I wish my GF would tell me what to wear and how to do my hair. She's going to art school for fashion design and I'm just sitting in the dark, not knowing if I'll look acceptable in public or not. Serial monogamy. If someone just got out of a relationship and starts dating you right away, chances are that they don't actually like you, but they like having someone in general. They're just with you to fill a void. And the second you break up, they'll be on to the next person. Edit. I'm talking about the people who only date so that they're not single. The ones who love the idea of having someone over loving the person themselves. Just keep in mind there are exceptions to every rule. My significant other had just got out of a bad relationship and a friend of hers said, I know a guy who's your type. At the very least he'll make a decent rebound guy. That guy was me. And we'll be celebrating our 8-year wedding anniversary next week. I'd like to point out that a lot of these so-called red flags everyone are bringing up can usually be rectified through communication and cooperation. Our throwaway culture makes jumping into and out of relationships much easier than it should be. So kids, before you go and dump your significant other just because she wants to spend a lot of time with you doesn't mean your relationship is doomed. All relationships are different. No one is the same, so take everything you read here with a healthy dose of salt. My husband and I have shared the same relationship for the last 10 years. Have lived together in near 24/7 contact for the last 9 of those years and are still as happy and comfortable as we were the day we moved in together. We achieved this by not nitpicking, no nagging, and no arguments over stupid shit. We are codependent. And it's okay for us. He's epileptic. I'm officially disabled from a car accident. And what one can't do the other takes care of. It's balanced. We both put effort into maintaining our relationship and it just works. As a female, I tend to go along with any lame excuse a guy throws out there. Example. I didn't call text communicate with you for a week or more because of work, family issues, personal problems. At first it seems easier on the ego to believe reoccurring excuses than to come to the obvious conclusion. He doesn't like you. However, moving on quickly is far more empowering than wasting time on someone who will never come around. If the first time you have sex with this person they aren't bothered by lack of protection, you should be. I broke that rule once in the heat of the moment. Didn't catch anything, but I did later discover I was also breaking the never stick your dick in crazy rule. One of the best moments in a relationship is when it gets serious enough to say goodbye to condoms and some other form of birth control takes the #1 spot. Doing less and less together. Sure. It's okay to go out with friends. But never neglect him. Being dependent on you to be happy or entertained. That is the calling card of a needy, insecure and possibly crazy piece of baggage. Now you tell me. Where were you 4 years ago? When they are heavily invested in gender differences, bear with me. It just means that sooner or later, your soul is going to assign you both a role and be annoyed when you don't fulfill your half of this invisible pact. Preconceived ideas about what men are supposed to be doing and what women are supposed to be doing don't work for me at all, done consciously or not. They turn the relationship into a trade or a deal, rather than a wonderful opportunity for two people to enjoy one another and even share a life. Which is the whole point of the exercise, or at least, I thought so. She fakes an abortion to try to get back together with you. Oh. You said subtle. Never mind. If someone cheats on their partner to be with you, for me that's a huge red flag. It means that they could do it to you too. Not so much a red flag but more just a general guideline tip for those of you who are racking your brains trying to figure out why he dumped you, despite them saying they still really love you. Example. I really love you but I just can't get my schedule to match yours and we just don't spend enough time together. I can't give you the time you need and or deserve. My advice for what it's worth. He does not love you anymore. If they did, they would make an effort to change the issue. And the sooner you can accept this, the better off you'll be in the long run. It sucks. But it's just one of those things you have to accept. The longer you ignore it, the longer it will take for you to get over your heartbreak. Just accept it and move on to the next person. Only writing this because I'm personally going through this right now. And I can honestly say it got better when I just chose to accept this fact, instead of driving myself crazy wondering why they don't want to make it work. If they go to Reddit for dating advice. Reddit. My current boyfriend doesn't put down the toilet seat, dislikes animals and children, and is unemployed. Should I break up with him? He's also strangled 3 women. But I know he's getting better and he promises he won't do it again. If your so is constantly suspicious of you cheating, there's a good possibility that they just have a guilty conscience because they are already at that point. Secretly logging into your Facebook and unfriending guy friends he's already isolated you from enough with guilt trips that you don't even notice for several months. Edit. I guess the only subtlety here is that it was secret. Otherwise giant red flag. When all their exes are crazy. Nope. Common denominator is you dickhead. Or you have really bad luck. My ex always used to translate what I was saying. I'd express what I was feeling or my opinion about something, and then he'd tell me what I really meant. GRRR. If they don't have any hobbies, This is a serious red flag because these people tend to be really clingy and jealous. I've never been jealous or clingy in my life. Even my exes attest to the fact. But I have no hobbies to speak of. If they say I love you too quickly, they're infatuated with you. Love takes time. If they hit you once, they are capable of doing it again. And again. And again. Never let someone, especially your so, hit you and tolerates it. Do you know what the words subtle and overlooked mean? When they talk to you and you simply want them to put the f-king lotion in the basket. Mood swings. If you're noticing mood swings that come without warning and confuse the shit out of you, run. The earlier this starts, the faster you run. Edit. To all those with mental disorders, this red flag does not apply to you. However, if you have a mental disorder, especially if you are not currently on meds, you do have a responsibility to tell the person you are seeing within a reasonable time frame, within the first 6 months. Cue relationship circle jerk. Warning signs are only seen as such because of the breakup itself. Looking back and seeing a common thread of problems developing is something almost all of us do after a breakup. For people still in relationships, warning signs need not be signs of anything. Sharing oneself with someone else is tricky business and there will be disagreements 99% of the time. These issues posthumously become warning signs when communication and understanding deteriorate to the point where it can be overpowered by the unwillingness to compromise. Seriously. When do you all go back to school? Seriously. When do you all go back to school? This is coming from the, presumably, adult at 11 AM on a Monday? Edit. It Reddit makes uninformed presumptions about the people posting in this thread, calling them all school children, and can't handle that I might also make uninformed presumptions about them. In Cartman's voice, screw you guys, I'm going back to lurking. It's some general advice and some very specific advice made from one bitter experience. When your so claims to be too busy to text you, yet is on Facebook on their phone for a better part of the day. Not being able to perform an accurate evaluation of your own feelings, motivations, needs, etc. For example, imagine a guy cheats on his so. He feels terrible. He can't believe he would hurt her this way. He loves her so much and just made a mistake. But when she asks him why he did it, he replies, I don't know. Wrong. I think it's really important for a person to be able to pinpoint why they do what they do or feel what they feel. For the cheating guy, maybe he'd find out. This all started when I befriended a girl who I was attracted to. I always thought I'd be able to keep things platonic. But maybe I'm the type of person who needs to remove himself from temptation rather than relying on self-control alone. And this applies to all situations. Everyone knows communication is important. But if you have a partner who can't identify his own feelings, how will he ever be able to communicate them to you? Red flag. Realizing that you have become roommates and not lovers. It can sneak up on you. Then boom, 5 years down the road you realize that you have just been living together, but no longer really attached. My wife and I love each other on a deep level. We can go out with friends or we can stay in and make each other laugh. Sometimes I see other couples and they just are getting through the day and never really doing anything special for each other or anything. I am explaining this terribly, but hopefully through my literal diarrhea you can understand what I mean. Everyone seems to be posting obvious ones. Here's some I found to be not so obvious. 1. If they need excessive attention from the opposite sex. I'm not saying they can't talk to guys, girls or have guy girlfriends. But if they allow them to flirt and spend an excessive amount of time messaging, hanging out with them, that's red flag number 1. 2. If they do things specifically because you're not there. Things they wouldn't do if you were. Especially if they don't tell you about it. That's red flag number 2. This could be a sign they're okay with doing things behind your back. 3. If they're influenced by their friends and or have friends who are bad influences. This could be very dangerous. Red flag number 3. TLDR. They spend an excessive amount of time with the opposite sex, allow the opposite sex to flirt with them. They do things behind your back, no matter how small. They are easily influenced by their friends. Red flag number 2 does not apply to farting. If they bad talk their ex. If you get a phone call or a text message and they say who's that? If you go on a date and they complain about their meal. If you get a phone call or a text message and they say who's that? If you go on a date and they complain about their meal. I'm not seeing the problem here. Edit. When they don't laugh at your obviously hilarious jokes.